Do you have an exit strategy? Can you count on a junior advisor ultimately buying your practice from you when you retire? Do you have a relationship with a different advisor in the industry who wants to buy your practice the day you want to be done? Have you thought through what your landing strip needs to look like at the end of your career? These are all important questions, and there's a viewpoint out there today that is changing radically because of the average age of advisors.
This is The Rare Advisor, proud to be a part of the Advisor Advancement Network and home of a business model supercharged by recurring and repeatable events. Your host is Mike Walters, CEO of USA Financial. He is an investment advisor representative of and securities are offered through USA Financial Securities, member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor.
Obviously, times are always changing. One could argue that since the pandemic, things have changed more rapidly than they have in, say, the 5 years prior to the pandemic. And this is also true in terms of not only how you operate your practice, but how people view your practice in terms of what is its value in the marketplace? What is it worth? And it's an important question because most likely, your financial advisory practice is the most valuable asset that you own. It's probably worth more than your real estate. It's probably worth more than your various bank and investment accounts. It is where the bulk of your assets are housed, and ultimately you're going to need to transition that into a more liquid asset in order to take care of your retirement and whatever other future plans you might hold. So it's important that you're asking yourself the questions about how are things operating in the marketplace today? So for example, if your practice is 100% geographically based and it is entirely dependent on that geography, prior to the pandemic, that probably wasn't a bad thing. In fact, many would probably argue it was a good thing if you had people geographically close to the office and you're running in-office appointments and so on. But now today, the opposite argument can actually be made. The fact that your practice might be worth less if you haven't properly trained your clients how to operate and interact with you in terms of video conferencing, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, whatever tool you prefer to use, but the customers and investors are comfortable and used to that. Doesn't mean you can't see them in person, but it means that it is always an option to not see them in person. Now, some clients prefer that. A lot of advisors, a lot of advisors are taking that to heart and they're making it literally a choice in the relationship. So maybe you get together once a year in person, and then maybe you do some quarterly touches that are through video. Or maybe you don't get together at all in live person. Maybe you always make it an option, but your first choice is to go to video. And then if upon request, you'll do live appointments. So people are doing this a number of different ways. So why am I bringing this up? Well, I'm bringing this up not only because you need to change the thought pattern of how you've managed your practice, and obviously most of you probably have done that, but I think this ties directly in to also the fact that there are more advisors over the age of 65 in this industry than there are advisors under the age of 35. And so if only about a quarter of the advisors are under the age of 45, you start to have to think about who's going to be making the acquisition, mergers, acquisitions, succession, transition, who's going to be that next phase for you. Or if you are relatively young, let's call it 55 and under, and you're aggressive, maybe even 60 and younger, right? But if you're aggressively growing through acquisition or you're wanting to, then this is a powerful time for you. Now, you'll read in the media that there are more buyers than there are sellers. I will tell you, having coached and mentored and mediated and walked a number of advisors through the process of mergers and acquisitions, succession and transitions, I will tell you that my experience is that there are a lot of wannabes. There are a lot of people who have some interest in it, but when the rubber hits the road, there is not an overwhelming number of people looking to purchase your practice. There's a lot of tire kickers. There's a lot of people who might knock on your door, but in terms of actually making it happen, that falls by the wayside relatively quickly. And you probably know advisors who have had a hard time with this. Maybe they thought a junior advisor was ultimately going to take over and it just didn't pan out. Or maybe they thought their partner was going to be the solution for them, but then their partner turns out they wanted to kind of be done at the same time they did, or they didn't want to physically buy them out. Or maybe they thought the advisor on the other side of town was their safety net, but now that advisor is not interested, or maybe can't qualify for the financing, or who knows what else. So you want to think about the staging process. You're going to need some sort of a landing strip when it comes to your mergers, your acquisitions, your succession, and your transitions. You're going to need a period of time. It's not like you just turn over the keys to someone. This is not a super quick process. So think ahead. Think about the design of your practice, and does it appeal to where the future is going? Does it appeal to maybe a younger advisor, because it's likely going to be a younger advisor who would potentially buy you out someday? And are you grooming that process for the future, either through a junior advisor or someone in your practice, or maybe someone outside your practice, or you've got a network that you're working, or you've got a group, an institution you rely upon to help you with that process? Obviously, USA Financial does that quite a bit these days. So all of these are things that we talk about at the Predictable Practice. The Predictable Practice is an event that we run periodically. There'll be a link down here that you can check out. I would highly encourage you in thinking through the value of your practice. It's not just about the value today. It's about growth. What can you grow it into? And we talk and dig deep on all of those kind of items at the Predictable Practice. So if this stuff is interesting to you, if you want to grow your practice, if you see a transition in your future at some point in time, then I would say it's a high likelihood you would want to attend the Predictable Practice. You will get a ton of value out of that. Hope you enjoyed this conversation. We'll be back again soon.
This information is for licensed financial professionals only and is not intended for use in soliciting sales from the public. The views expressed represent the opinions of the presenter or their featured guest, not necessarily those of USA Financial or its affiliated subsidiaries. Industry references are generic and not intended to represent actions or beliefs of any individual or entity. Content is only presented to illustrate general principles, beliefs, or ideas and should not be construed as legal or regulatory advice. Trademark and copyright protected. USA Financial and Affiliates.